For step 2, we are going to read the passages. This first passage I have already read, highlighted, and put notes. So let's read together, and you can see what I have already highlighted. This is a quote as our first text piece from Bill Cosby. In order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear of failure. Now, the words that stood out to me were to succeed, desire for success, because those both are together, greater, and your fear of failure. Okay, as you're reading, you should be sure to highlight this information, as Park will allow you to do that, and try to keep some mental notes of what this is trying to say. Now, for me, I wrote the notes down so that you'd be able to see them, and I took this quote as saying, if I really want something, it should be worth all the risks. Now, keep in mind what was said in this first passage, because chances are when you read your second or even third passage, the information that is similar is what you should be looking for. In this case, I'm going to look for words that talk about succeed or success and something to do with failure and trying to get past that. Now let's read the second passage together. As we go through this, I'm going to highlight the information that I found while reading this so that we can look at that together. Now this is a biography piece, okay? So it's going to be a nonfiction passage, and it's going to be about Ella Fitzgerald. So I'm going to highlight that since that's our title. And let's begin reading. Ella Fitzgerald's parents separated right after her birth in 1917. Soon afterward, she was moved to Yonkers, New York with her mother. They lived there with her mother's boyfriend, Joseph de Saliva. A short time later, Ella had a new sister, Frances. Struggling financially, she helped her mother out by working small jobs while her mother and Joe worked several jobs. Okay, now in this first passage, I'm going to highlight who we're talking about once again, so Ella Fitzgerald, and I'm going to put that she was born in 1917. That gives me some background information, tells me when she was around, so this is right after World War I, so it gives you some information about the life that she was probably living. And I'm also going to highlight this last area here. So they were struggling financially, which means they were did not have a lot of money. And so she helped out her family by working small jobs while her mother and Joe worked several jobs. So it tells you that they really needed this extra money because not only were both her mother and her stepdad working multiple jobs, that even Ella as a young child had to start working too. Okay, now let's read our second paragraph. Both Joe and Ella's mother suffered from heart attacks and died from them when Ella was a teenager. Okay, now this is something that we're going to want to know, that they died from heart attacks. And if she was a teenager, we're going to know that this is going to be a struggle for her. So let's get this information in here, and that it was when Ella was a teenager. Okay. She ended up moving in with an aunt, but began to suffer from depression. Again, this is another struggle, so we're going to want to highlight this. She also developed problems in school. Because of these events, Ella was sent to a reform school that later had been under suspicion for abusing its students. By 1934, Ella dropped out of school and was trying to make it on her own by living on the streets homeless. Still embracing dreams of becoming an entertainer, a dream she held onto since childhood, Ella entered an amateur singing contest at Harlem's Apollo Theater. Fitzgerald performed 2 songs and went on to win the contest's $25 first place. Now again, this is back in the early 1900s. $25 was a lot of money, so keep that in mind. And let's go back through and see what information we can look at. So we had that she was suffering from depression. We also need to know that Ella was sent to reform school because it goes along with the struggles. Okay? In 1934, Ella dropped out of school and tried to make it on her own and was homeless. Okay? Notice that I'm not highlighting complete sentences here. I'm just pulling out the information that I need. I don't need the and the was and the to. Okay? You're just pulling out some of this important information. Okay? Now here's where it starts to sound a lot like our quote that we just read, that she was embracing dreams of becoming an entertainer. Okay? We know that this is something that she wanted. It was a dream since childhood. Okay, so she entered an amateur singing contest. In the end, she went on to win the contest and the $25 first place. That's going to be important to know. All right, let's read our last paragraph. Ella Fitzgerald had her big break. Becoming famous wasn't easy, and she had to work to overcome setbacks due to racial segregation and racism. But she had a singing voice that caught the attention of everyone. She persevered through adversity and went on to sell over 40 million albums, along with a National Medal of the Arts. Ella Fitzgerald passed away in 1996, becoming a legend in her own time. Now here again, information that goes along with our last quote. So we are going to want to know that becoming famous wasn't easy. Now this sounds a lot like the success quote. Okay, it wasn't easy and she had to work to overcome setbacks. Okay, and that she persevered. If you persevere, that means you're pushing forward. Okay, so she persevered through adversity, which means the segregation and this racism, so people talking bad about her and the difficulties. And she went on to sell over 40 million albums, and that she won a National Medal of the Arts. Okay, now that is all the information that we find important here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to come back over here for our notes, and let's type in some information that we found important. So now I'm going to look back at my passage and now look at what I highlighted. I don't need to reread the whole thing. We've just read that. So I'm just going to look at these parts that are highlighted in yellow. Okay, so we're going to want to know, now that we've read that and pulled that information out, I'm going to write down what I think is similar to our first quotation. So something about the success and that you shouldn't be afraid to fail. So what stands out to me as one of the most important things is that she had a childhood dream of becoming famous or becoming an entertainer. Okay, so that's going to be one of the first things I'm going to write down. Okay, another thing I'm going to write down is that she tried to make it on her own as an entertainer and was actually homeless. That's going to show the hardships that she had to go through. Okay, again, not having to type in full sentences, okay? You can just type in the information that's coming to you. You're going to have to do this quick when taking the PARCC test. Okay, she was trying to make it on her own. I'm going to want to know that she entered a contest and that she won. Okay, that's going to be important. So this is how we know that she was able to achieve this dream. Okay, and I'm going to actually write down how does this connect to our first piece. Okay, so in this case it seems like even though Ella had to face some hard struggles, or had to face these different struggles, she never lost sight of what her dream was. And in the end, was able to achieve that dream. Now let's go on to the next page. Okay, now this is your third text that you are going to read. This one is a poem by Langston Hughes. Okay, this you are going to read on your own. You are going to highlight the information that you find important. Remember, you're trying to find things that are similar to your first passage and now your second passage. And then you're going to write your notes over here. Once you have finished doing that, you can move on. You have to show your teacher, and then you will watch the next video.